Well, hi everybody. Welcome to the Carbon Black Developer Tools session as part of the VMware Code Connect this year. I'm Kylie Ebringer, and we've got a few other people from the developer relations team here who will chime in during questions later on in the session. We've got Lisa Hilmers, who is our UX designer, Alex Van Brunt, who's one of the developers, and Barista Kine, who's our product manager for a lot of this work. So the session today is going to be so a run through, a bit of an introduction to the Carbon Black tool set. It's relatively new into the VMware product suite. And so we're going to walk through how you can integrate Carbon Black into the security stack using open APIs, integrations, and also some software development kits we've got. We're going to put it in the context of the VMware intrinsic security, and then look at the different mechanisms we have for programmatically interacting. And we'll have time at the end for some Q&A, and I'm going to do a live demo. So hopefully the technology gods will be with me. So the Carbon Black products provide endpoint security protection solutions. We've got on-premise solutions, and there we've got app control, which helps you lock down the critical system, prevent unwanted changes, and it helps ensure continuous compliance with the various regulatory mandates there. And there's also an on-premise endpoint detection and response, or EDR solution. And that's the threat hunting and incident response solution. I'm going to talk today mostly about the Carbon Black Cloud piece. You'll hear us refer to things around the platform, and that's things like devices, alerts, things that are available no matter which product you have. Endpoint standard is the next generation antivirus, and it's behavioral EDR. That's got the built-in analytics, and out of the box, it generates alerts for things that are considered interesting from a security perspective. We then have audit and remediation, which is what lets you interact with the endpoints. Makes use of some of the live query pieces, and you can audit and change the system state. Enterprise EDR is the cloud-based threat hunting and incident response solution. You can ingest indicators of compromise from the commercial providers. You can also do your own analysis and import those, add them to watch lists, and then generate alerts based on those ISCs if they're seen across the network. Workload protection is the newest piece. I think depending on which sessions you're in, you may have heard the announcements of that this week. And that enables protecting vSphere virtual appliances and virtual machines in that space. So today, everything that I'm going to be talking about from an integration perspective is available on the Carbon Black Developer Network side. There's a lot of extra information there that I won't be going near today. And so this is just developer.carbonblack.com, and this is where you'll find all the information about the APIs that we have. Occasionally we put up showcases where people outside our development team have done interesting things with the APIs. And we also put up blog posts as new pieces become available. So before I jump into the detail, I'm just going to define a couple of terms that I'm using because you don't know what experience people have got. So a process is an execution of an application. An event is an observable occurrence, typically on the endpoint or the device. And an alert is something that's deemed interesting, and it'll be linked to the events. And today we've got some help from the Friendly Office team. So I'm going to do a demonstration a bit later, but to put it in context, so it tells a bit of a story. To short notice, you've been asked to analyze alert and event data. Now, the Carbon Black Cloud provides good tools for analysis, but it's the web interface. So for people who want to interact programmatically with the data, combine it with information from other systems, that can be pretty frustrating. So I'm not sure how long it takes most people to get to this point, how many clicks. It's okay. So the event forwarder it was designed specifically for bulk export of alert and event data. It can be configured to push the alerts and the events to an S3 bucket. With the events, particularly on the enterprise EDR product, that can generate a lot of data. It might be what you want, but it might not be what your licensing arrangements for the data lake might like. And so there's a filtration capability. It can be filtered by event origin, by event type, by the alert ID, or by the sensor action that generated that event. Once it's in your S3 bucket, the retention period, and it's also in your control about where that data gets ingested next. The API to configure the event forwarder is fairly straightforward. It's got create, read, update, delete, typical CRUD operations. So create an event forwarder and configure any filtration that you'd like on that. Get the list of event forwarders that are configured for your organization. Update the event forwarder to change the filtration rules that are on there, and then delete the event forwarder if you don't need it anymore. And you can build up multiple event forwarders to get whatever combination of selection criteria you'd like. And this goes into your own S3. And one of the main constraints there is it needs to be in the same region as the Carbon Black Cloud instance. Now, sometimes we need a bit of bling. But as I said, also, as well as the event forwarder, there's also a set of APIs that are really good for the interactive work. And as I mentioned, audit and remediation and live response enable taking action on the endpoints. So we're going to look today initially at process searching. So some of the pieces that I'm going to show today will be released in the next couple of weeks. A lot of it is already there. There's a few new routes to give better capabilities. There's some improvements in the back end around performance, and there's a huge improvement to the level of information that's available. So the core process search has got a really rich set of fields that are available to be used as matching. You can define exclusion criteria, and you can also just use Lucene search syntax. You can choose which fields get returned as a set that come back by default, but then there's a set that you can request explicitly, and then set the sort order. So this is what you see on the search, and I'll actually go into some of these pages when I do the demo shortly. And then, so as well as the process search, you can search by a facet to get statistics about different fields that you might want to search by. And then there's various helper calls, so validating a search, suggesting values to search by or restrict by, and checking the time period that data is available. So I'm going to jump into a live demo here. We'll see how this goes. So I'm going to start off over on the developer network. That's not sharing properly, is it?
Try stopping your share and restarting and sharing your whole window.
Thanks, Lisa. Go. So I'm going to start off on the developer network website, developer.carbonblack.com. And I know that I want the documentation on Black Cloud. The piece that I'm interested in is in the cloud platform. So no, it's being moved to the cloud platform. The things that I'm using today is actually the enterprise EDR. I'm running against production systems, so hence I'm going to use the pieces in here. So I know that it's the process search field, the process searches that I want. So I'm going to come in here, and it tells me how to get started. It tells me the common headers, and then we jump into the routes. One of the things that we've really improved this is what will be coming out soon, is the introduction section, showing off the overview, giving the use cases and quick links to the queries that you'd like to use, the headers, the quick start pieces, and telling us about authentication. So I know that I'm going to want to run a process search. Come in here, and the first thing it tells me is that I need to have role-based access controls, and I need to be able to create a search for events. The other routes will also tell me all of this, and I actually need to create the job and then also the read. So jump into, there's a beautiful authentication page that tells us all about how this works, how to authenticate it, what is different for different types of routes, and walks through the screenshots of how to create it within Carbon Black console. I'm going to do that now. So I'm going to come in here, I go settings, API access. Because it's a role-based access control, I'm going to start with the access levels. I'm going to add an access level, the CODE4239 demo, and I know that I want the events. I want to be able to search on events. Create, read, update. Delete will let me cancel a search if I change my mind later. So that's what I'm doing here, is creating an access level that has just those privileges. And so for searching of data, it might not be as critical in all organizations, but this same pattern becomes more important for some of the more sensitive operations. I'll save that. Don't want me to describe it as well. So I'll give it an additionally descriptive description there. Now that I've defined that access level and limit it to just searching, I'm going to create that. I'm going to add that to an API key. There's some of our legacy key types here. This is the custom key, and it then prompts me to choose what I need here. That's the CODE4239 demo. Then new credentials. This is like the password. So these will get rolled as soon as I finish the demo here. So now I'm going to jump into Postman. I've set up my query here. Inside the header, it needs to have that token. So we need that half of it. We need the secret key as well. And then up here, this is the route that I'm going to be calling. Carbon Black Cloud environment. It's an API investigate v2 route. I've got the organization key in there, and I'm searching for processes, and I'm just going to run an open search. It's a bit interesting. I've almost certainly got the key mixed up, which is why having that in a configuration rather than typing it in individually like I am here is a much better idea. So I'm going to use a different key that I know was working just before this session. We'll run that. That's better. And so now, because it's an asynchronous search, it's given me the job ID back for that. for that job. I can then run checking of the status. And in here, this route, it's very similar. And I just put the job ID as part of that call. Comes back and it tells me that it's contacted 5, completed 5, so I know that the search is completed. I'm then going to use the results. I'm using that same job ID, still search jobs, and I'm now requesting the results. And there it all comes back. Tells me which alerts were involved, and then gives me a whole lot of information about the process. Who ran it, the watch list kits that were related to it. And this is where I could have configured in the search additional fields that I wanted to have returned. Then find out more about what events were associated with that process. I can then take that process ID and I can do a search for the process events. So I'm looking for the events, and this call takes the process good. So I'm now searching for all events related specifically to that process. And here it is. So now I've got that information and I can import it to another tool to use or whatever is needed. All the APIs return their data in JSON, so it does make it easy to read. Yeah, so I just wanted to show that using the APIs there is actually relatively straightforward. A little bit of configuration, but the information is all on the developer network. I'm going to jump back into our slides. This was my backup with a recording from a little while ago. We've done that. So we can't get the CB analytics data. This is the information that comes from the endpoint standard product, where there's built-in analytics that are analyzing the events that come back and determining based on machine learning and very behavioral analytics, what is it that's actually interesting? And yes, there's APIs that support that as well. These are the enriched events, which have been enriched in that they've made use of the analytics and have that extra context. In the similar platform set of APIs, and it's searching for enriched events. A lot of the fields that we were looking at in the process searching and the process event searches are common with the enriched events. So depending on what context you're searching in, will determine which APIs are going to be better for your need. The new process search fields. This is one area where we've put a lot of effort with the updated routes that are coming out. For all of the fields across the process event and enriched events route, there's a search field. There's a search fields document which has the definition, it has the values, any of the enumerated values, and because they are common, it identifies which routes they're on. So if you know there's a specific field that a piece of information you're after, you can also use this to say, well, where can I get that? There's plenty of information there, and I've only touched on a very small section of the APIs and the data that's available to retrieve from Carbon Black. I encourage you to have a look around the APIs, see what's available in there. Of course, we need to have the flare. Wouldn't be complete without that. There's a lot of information. I showed the developer network side. There's also Carbon Black Cloud integrations and the integration network. So there's some integrations that we build and support, but there's a huge number of product partners that also have built integrations from their product back to Carbon Black. So have a look at that as you're building out your enterprise environment and integrating with different products. There's a developer community forum, post questions, and so if there's a particularly interesting query you're trying to work out or find out how other people in the community have done things, that forum is a great place to go. There's a GitHub repository. A lot of the things we deliver around SDKs and integrations, we make the code available as under open source licensing. So you can have a look there, and if it doesn't quite do what you need, you can clone the repository and extend it as you need. I mentioned the community showcase, which has some fun things. And then we've also got a roadmap. So with that, does anybody there have questions, or does anybody else from the team want to add to what I've said? There's a question here about how much is open to the public. So all of the information is available to is available without needing any login or anything like that. If you're an integration partner, there are ways for partners to get license access to the cloud, and then otherwise it'll typically be in the context of an existing customer or a proof of concept piece.
Yeah, the other piece being the user exchange. There are sections of it that will require a license and account, where some sections are public. So.
Another question, is all Carbon Black functionality available via the API? Pretty close. And certainly as we're building new features, we've got a very strong renewed focus on API first. So making sure that the APIs are public, well documented, and fit for purpose in that integration, in programmatic uses. I've got a few minutes left. So one of the other pieces we've got going, just to raise the awareness, is the Carbon Black Cloud Python software development kit. And this is particularly for people who find a lot of people doing incident response type work. They're very comfortable in a Python environment, and they're trying to string together multiple queries, get information from one query, use that as the next piece. The Python SDK makes that much easier. Hides some of the asynchronous calls that I was doing and let people interact with it as Python objects. Sure if anybody else wanted to expand on that.
Yes, I'll just note that we're planning a soft release of the alpha version of the Carbon Black Cloud SDK. So check out our website for our meetup coming up in October 22nd. And that meetup will give you information on how to sign up for the early release.
Yeah, and the SDK is something that we see pretty great adoption from customers on, especially those that like to do things like threat hunting. It's not always easy to do searches, process through that data in the console. So what they'll do is they'll get together a set of scripts that'll kick off searches, analyze the data, maybe pivot on that data, and it can turn into a whole threat hunting exercise that you can repeat or tweak in the future if you need to. The SDK makes that pretty great. And so some of that search API functionality that Kylie was showing is what we're looking to introduce to Carbon Black Cloud SDK in probably the next couple months, where you saw that asynchronous behavior. If you don't want to have to deal with that at all, you just make a single Python SDK call, and it gets to be really powerful to simplify your workflow.
There's a question around, will Carbon Black be licensed as part of VMware's suite of offerings? I'm going to completely bail on that question because I'm not sure what the current sales team, what the current offerings are in that and what the intentions are. But certainly reach out to the to any of the customer teams, or there's a contact us link on the developer network site. So feel free to put that in and we can get you in touch with the right people.
Well, if there's no other questions, I think we can end a couple minutes early. Thank you again so much. Oh, is it a question? Never mind. Thank you again so much, Kylie and team, for doing the session today. We loved having you, and hopefully we can do more of these in the future.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining us this afternoon. I hope that was interesting and got a bit more of an idea around what's available in the Carbon Black Cloud and how to programmatically access it.
Thanks. Bye, guys.